So if you haven't already come across the has selector, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before you do, and you may have already come across it and maybe you just don't know how to use it, you don't know where it would be useful. So let's go through a quick idea of one reason why it might be useful and how it changes something that we could or maybe couldn't do in the past. So I've currently got set up on CodePen here a quick navigation, something quite simple, and I've got some basic styling, but I'm going to try and do something to, when we hover over one of these buttons, we can tell that we've hovered over that specific button. And the most obvious solution here would be to say a hover and then we do something with it. So I'm actually going to make it so that the default has a text decoration of none, and then in the hover state I'm going to have a text decoration of underline. So now when I hover over it we get the underline and I can tell that that is what I'm currently got selected. Maybe I want it to stand out a little bit more though, so I want to actually try something a little different. I want to be able to hover over this link here and have the others fade out a little bit. So can I do that? Well, one way I would have tried to do this in the past, I would have used a sibling selector to try something perhaps like a hover and then use a sibling that's an A and then say opacity of 0.4. So just to weaken it, but as you can see the plus sibling selector only goes for the next sibling. So if I hover over this, it's only going to affect gallery because gallery is the next one. If I go for home, it's only ever going to go for the next one. It's not going to go for anything after that. It's not going to go for anything before the one I'm hovering over. So we're quite limited in that one. We do, however, have the full-on sibling selector where we can just say any siblings, anything that is on the same level by saying the tilde symbol and then the A. And then when I hover over, oh wait, we still have the same problem almost. This time it's anything that comes after gets greyed out. But I don't want that. I want all of these to be greyed out when I hover over this except for the one I'm hovering over. So let's remove this completely. Now what we ideally want to do is we want to say when I hover over this, any other child of that parent needs to be greyed out, needs to be faded, needs to have an opacity. Unfortunately, we don't have a proper parent selector, so we're only able to select a parent's children, but we can't select a child's parent. So I can't say A and then somehow work my way back up to work out what that link is contained in. In this scenario, the link is contained within a nav, but if I'm hovering over this A tag, I can't work out that it is contained within this nav. But we have a new tool called has, as we've already discussed, which sort of works almost like a parent selector, or the equivalent of a parent selector in many ways. We can select our nav, and then we can say, does it have, by saying :has, and then in brackets we say what we're looking for. So in this nav, we're currently looking for an A with a hover state. So that's when I hover over this nav now has an A.hover because we're hovering over an A that is contained within that nav. And then we can say any A's within that nav will have an opacity of 0.4. And now look, when I hover, they all get greyed out. However, of course, I don't want this particular one that I'm hovering over to be greyed out. So I can now say, I can use the selector of not. So this A does not have a state of hover and it stays as expected. Now you realise before we couldn't do that. We could only affect the one we were selecting or the ones that come after it. But now by doing a little bit of engineering using the has selector, we can say that if this nav has a hovered element within it, then we can affect any elements contained within it. And when you first use this, it might seem a little bit weird because we're so used to saying we want to say select an element, then we need to select its children, and we work our way downward. We've never been able to work our way up before. And in a way, we can't work our way up here, but we are cleverly being able to select based on the children. We can then select and edit more children, which has just not been possible before. And this is one great way that I can see that we can really use has. We can use it quite interestingly in image galleries, we can use it for clever navigations, and it takes out the need in some ways, which has always been quite impressive with CSS, is as it's evolved, it's taken out things that once upon a time we had to find very strange hacks, or we had to use JavaScript to try and sort of find our own way around.